Is everybody back in? That was totally my fault. I'm very sorry. Sorry about that.
Oh dear.
Oh well. Anyway, yes, sorry, Michael. Yeah, no, that is terrible. Oh, I thought there was a rule that you couldn't immobilize a vehicle without the permission of the driver. I know that's not really the point. But also there are one can remove a clamp. Again, that's not the point. I know your story is it is very sad. But you were going to say something, Chris, when I switched it on.
Uh, I'm just wondering if Michael's got back. Yeah, what I was going to say was that that is an appalling example of police supporting criminal action. And we've got to start getting back at the police. And I think what we need is a special Q&A, perhaps in a fortnight's time, focusing on ways of really pushing back in the criminal courts in relation to these actions. This sort of it is appalling what's happening.
Yeah,
So maybe we'll do that in a fortnight's time.
yeah, that's a good
Um,
idea.
what might be useful is just a quick brief. So we originally you put out the message about this being about deeds of trust, and I thought it might be quite good just to introduce for 5 minutes or so the whole concept of what we are doing and why, and what is a deed of trust, and just to try to introduce it for people. They may have picked bits and pieces up over the months, but it's quite useful to summarize it every now and again. Does that make
Yeah,
sense to people?
brilliant.
Okay, so just very briefly, going back over the whole process, I discovered back in 2010, 2011, around about that time, the concept of trust and how our leaders put their money into trust to keep it overseas in tax havens and other places to keep it away from the tax man in this country. And it seemed to me back in 2017, after my three sessions at Her Majesty's pleasure, um, that we needed to use this system of trust, which is very effective indeed to help in helping the top 100,000 people in this country avoid their responsibilities in law and keep their money out of the country so that it's the ordinary people have to pay all the taxes and they don't pay anything. So I thought, well, okay, let's make sure that we use that system of trusts to benefit us and not them. And that's where it all came up. So I have been developing ever since then and looking into what it's all about. It really trying to explain it to other people. It's a simple process of ensuring a technical structure within which we can ensure that when we are transacting with people we don't know or can't automatically trust, then if we are dealing in property or transacting money, financial transactions or property transactions, whatever it is, then by putting things in trust, it or into an escrow account, we can ensure that the parties to the transaction operate lawfully and legally to benefit both parties, and they don't run off with the money or the property or anything else. So that was the original purpose of a trust. It came about in the 12th and 13th centuries when in the Crusades, many of the barons with large amounts of property went off for 4 or 5 years on a crusade, and they had to appoint somebody to look after their affairs in the UK, in England, or wherever it was at that time. And so this is how trusts started up. And they needed to ensure that somebody would look after their estate and manage their affairs while they were away, And when they came back, they would get the property back and carry on themselves. So that was the purpose of trust in those days, and they've developed since then. And that has been very useful for us because now, instead of just putting property in trust or making a trust for your descendants, putting it into a will or whatever it is, we can now have a living will and operate a trust for our assets being transferred to somebody else whilst we are alive. And that really is the whole purpose of this. And the wording of the trust is such that providing you put very clear conditions on it, and you have the main aspects of any trust, that's a settlor, a trustee, and a beneficiary, clearly laid out, with the purposes of the trust clearly laid out, then that is a legal document that takes precedence over almost every other financial transaction in this country. In fact, every other one. I can't find anything that does not, has to be anything that cannot be put into trust, and trust takes precedent over, providing it's properly done, over everything else. So that is why we are doing this in relation to every financial transaction that we undertake where we know or suspect that the some of the money may end up in the hands of the government, and the government will use it for criminal purposes. And so we have every right to say, I am happy to pay my taxes to my government. They are my government, and I'm not their servant. I'm happy to pay my taxes to my government, providing they use the money totally lawfully and never use any of it for criminal purposes. And that has been the background, really, to all the tax declarations and deeds of trust. And providing you have those statements within the trust, then we are safe from prosecution. Now, the reason why we have not had the trust taken to court so far is that if they do, the government takes us to court or public authority takes us to court, they will lose. We can prove they are breaking the law and committing the worst criminal offenses known to mankind: war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, and now aggression. These are 4 crimes in the International Criminal Court Act in this country. The same ones are in the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, which applies in 124 nations. So that's the standard behind it. The other law, of course, is the Terrorism Act 2000, which also applies, and it relates to money. It comes from the international statute, which is the Convention for the Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism, which is now described as the Terrorist Financing Convention. And in that, 188 nations have agreed never to finance harm to any other human being. And so, as there are 188 nations signed up to it, we have a very powerful international statute to back up our trust. So we have 2 international statutes, the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court and the Terrorist Financing Convention, as well as 2 or 3 domestic laws. The 2 in England and Wales are the Terrorism Act 2000 and the International Criminal Court Act 2001. And in Scotland, it's the Terrorism Act 2000 plus the International Criminal Court Scotland Act 2001. And Northern Ireland is included in the one for England and Wales, but separate sections. and perhaps I'll do a separate thing at some point for that. So that's the background for deeds of trust. It is a very important thing, and the process is that we can set them up ourselves. And as you set up your own will for how you want your money distributed to your descendants after you've died, so too you can set up a trust saying how you want your money distributed whilst you are still alive. And in particular, we're focusing on all of those bits of money that go to the government. And that includes student loans, taxes, council tax, income tax, inheritance tax, stamp duty, all of the DVLA licenses, fines from courts, everything. It all goes into the consolidated fund. So it includes the lot. Now, somebody was asking me last weekend, 8 days ago, about the process that is used for withholding taxes from the government in a trust. Can we put all our property and other things in it? What I'm saying at the moment is that the wording of this trust is focused really on taxes, and I mean in general all money that goes to the government. It is important, I think we're going to deal with it later, that if you want to put your money in trust or your property in trust for other people, or your house and car and other things in trust, then great, please do so. But it's not necessarily useful to use this particular deed. You need to get a special deed for that. That needs to be perhaps organized by a solicitor or whatever. Hopefully we can do that later. So broadly then, we can put all of our money in trust. And one other thing that people are asking about is mortgages. At the moment, they're getting tough on mortgages, and a lot of people are being asked to repay them or whatever. Now, mortgages are indirectly going to the government. When you pay your mortgage, you are transferring money to a bank or to the mortgage supplier, to the loan supplier. And you know that some of that money will go to the government. They pay their employees PAYE and national insurance. They make large loans through the Bank of England to the government and so on. So we know that they are breaking the law and funding war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide. And therefore you have a legal duty not to transfer that money to your mortgage company. So we now start to focus on mortgages, and I think that would be helpful to a lot of people. Now, I banged on long enough about that, but that's a sort of rough introduction to trusts and trust deeds, so that people who are new to it and haven't had the input on it can get some idea what it's all about. Is that helpful?
Very. Thanks, Chris. Okay, Crypto Rich has got his hand up.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to add something because I'm now at the state, I'm post-affidavit with HMRC. And one of the things I've said in all my correspondence, I think I've said it every single time to HMRC and in the affidavit and in the notice of default, that I'm using the trust to ensure legal compliance by HMRC. So then I've stated that explicitly, so they can't come back to me and say that I'm using the trust mechanism in order to avoid paying tax. So I think that's important to say. No, I'm using this to make sure that you are acting legally and I'm acting legally.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's important to say that, Rich.
Okay, brilliant. And Debbie?
Hi, I'm sorry I joined a bit late, but just a couple of things. One, is it really an irrevocable trust or revocable trust?
It's revocable, and the point about it being revocable is that you put a date on the conditions by which they have to have been met. So you say to the government, right, if you meet my conditions by the 5th of April 2025, or by the 1st of January 2025, or just 2 months in 2 months' time. If you have that, then at that point, you can revoke their right to the money, and it goes to the secondary beneficiary. So it's a revocable trust, not an irrevocable trust.
Fantastic. And can I ask a second question? Because you kindly last week or week before put up a template to send to the enforcement agents.
Yep.
And there were a couple of points in there where it felt like you were actually writing to the council rather than the enforcement
Oh,
agent.
sorry, no, it wasn't for the enforcement agent. No, it's for the council. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, but nobody really writes to the enforcement agent, do they?
well, that's what I thought that
William.
was.
Hugh?
Yes, whenever enforcement agents send you a notice that they are in charge of the debt, quote unquote, you have to answer them.
Yeah, but
You have to get into a conversation with them.
right, but that letter was for the council. I'd still say just phone them up and say, can I have the liability order? They've never got it, and that's the end of them normally.
Well, they did send me one, so even though it was a fakish looking one, so that's why I'm not going down that route. But I'm sure that's what you put up last week. I've obviously misunderstood it then.
Might have been me. I'll have another look.
So
yeah,
wait a minute, Debbie. I'd like to understand what you're saying there.
So after our last meeting 2 weeks ago, a few days later, you posted up a new document. I'm just seeing if I can find it. I had it up a minute ago. What was it called? Shall I come back and let someone else speak, and then I'll get it up?
Liability letter. Was it the generic letter to all tax collectors?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer that, Susie?
Yes, I was just trying to pull it up actually. I think maybe that was to
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Liability to agent and principal.
Because I've been using it to write to Ross and Roberts.
Well, it's fine, but they're sort of saying the same thing, aren't they? Aren't they?
Well, they are, except in this new one, there was a couple of points in there that it sounded like you were writing to the council not. So I'll just change it around to make it sound like it actually is.
I think that's the one size fits all generic letter.
Well, because it says, be advised that I've discharged the entirety of this alleged unlawful debt by depositing it into a conditional revocable trust, wherein you are designated the primary beneficiary, but the council's designated the primary beneficiary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, anybody who has, it's everybody involved there, Debbie. Basically, if you look, it says the government, the councils and others and their agents. So anybody
okay.
who
Thanks,
is an
Chris.
agent of the government or any part of government is included in the declaration and deed.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then. And then there was something else about, should you fail to provide incontrovertible evidence satisfying the aforementioned conditions by no later than the 1st of January, your claim to the aforementioned sum will be nullified on the grounds blah, blah, blah. But it also said this sum shall be made available to you within a period of 14 days. So that was a bit confusing for me.
So basically, the cut-off date by which they have to have met the conditions is the 1st of January in that case, or whatever date you put into it. And the point being that if they meet the conditions, then they will receive the money from the trustee within 14 days.
Okay.
Got it?
Right, I've got it now. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Right, Marco. Marco?
Hello.
Hello, Marco. Good to see
Hello.
you.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. And it's good to see you last week.
Yeah, it was. I've got a couple of questions. So, I took my pension, you know, the 25% where it's not taxed. I took it, and I said to them, you know, I'd like to take the whole lot, but they said they tax it. So I only took 25%, which is tax free. And then I asked them, if I take it next year or any time, can I take it without them taking out the tax that they give to HMRC? And they say they don't. They tax it at source. Is there any way around that?
Well, I
No,
think, yes. I mean, this is important, Marco. There is an awful lot of pensioners and others who are having tax taken by their pension companies and others. And we need to start pushing back. And the point
So I
being,
don't want my pension to be taxed. So what do I do? Because it's not like I'm controlling the money, you know.
no, exactly. I mean, they're controlling the money.
Mhm.
We need to send a letter to them pointing out the illegality of their actions so that they can set up a trust on behalf of all their clients, all the pensioners whose pensions they are managing. And they need to stop paying the tax to the government, to the Revenue and Customs, until the Revenue and Customs meets the conditions that we're putting onto it.
But do you
And we
think they'll
have to
listen to
persuade,
that?
this is the problem we have in this country is that most of the money goes to the government through corporations. And some of the biggest corporations are the pension companies. And we need to actually write directly to them and start to persuade them to set up trusts on behalf of all their clients, all the people they are managing the money for. So we have yet to do it. So I'd be happy to work with you, Marco, to try it with your pension people. Was that a state pension or a separate
No, it's a private pension.
private pension?
But so I mean, I've taken 25% tax free, but I'd like to take the whole amount next year without being taxed. Because
Absolutely.
I think you have to
So-
get a court order. That was the advice from someone else, wasn't it? You need a court order
what I need to get a court order.
to get them to not take the money out. I don't know how you're going to stop them otherwise, unless the pension fund agrees.
So I get a court order against my pension provider.
Only if it was a government pension provider.
No,
But
no, this is private. It's a
if you're a
private.
private pension provider, you're not going to want to get a court order against them, are you? But if they say no, that was the advice from somebody else who sought advice from a lawyer.
Well, to get a court order.
Yeah, I think the point being that we have
They're not going to listen, are they, these bastards?
they very rarely listen to anybody. So we have to devise a system that gets them to listen. And that's what I like about Section 19 of the Terrorism Act. It is a criminal offence. And we need to point out that, sorry to them. What were you going to say?
If we send them all this information, what you're saying, like if I send them a letter or a notice to my pension company warning them that it's a criminal offense to all the stuff that we talk about every other week, but they just ignore it and they just say, "No, we understand, but we're still going to comply with HMRC and we're going to give them the money." Where does that leave me?
Well, it leaves you in the position of sending a letter to the chief constable in the area where the pension company is based, pointing out
Going after the man. Going after the man.
Yeah. I mean, they're the ones that are committing the criminal offences. It's not a criminal offence for a pension company to do this. It's a criminal offence for the directors of the pension company.
Right. So maybe do that. Maybe write to the pension CFO.
Yep.
And tell him that, warn him about everything that's going on, and then tell him that my intentions is to withdraw all the amount and I don't want to pay any tax. Otherwise, I will hold him, the man, personally liable for paying my tax on my behalf. Do you think that would work?
Absolutely. That's exactly what we're to do. I'm happy to help you with that and to
Okay,
spread it around a few other pension companies as well. I'm sure there'll be other people
let's
who would like their pension company to get the same letter.
yeah, let's do it. The other thing is I was going to ask Crypto Rich if he can share his affidavit. Would
Oh,
that be
sorry,
okay?
he did send it to me today. I'll
Oh,
send it on.
oh, can you send it to me, please?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll do that.
Okay. Also with mortgages, now I have one of these mortgages where it goes into, it's a one account. And 6 months ago, I kind of stopped paying like 2 months, and then I was behind, and then just, oh, you're behind, and then I caught up. But if I was to do the trust thing with them, wouldn't that put my mortgage in arrears? How would
Well,
I?
from their point of view, yes, but we've got to prove to them not only is it a fraudulent thing in the first place, but mainly it's a criminal offence for them to hand any money whatsoever, the individuals in that company, to hand any money whatsoever to the Revenue and Customs, and that includes the PAYE and national insurance of their employees, particularly of the company directors whose pension, whose salaries are enormous anyway.
Has
So
anybody else done mortgage with your trust? Anyone? Or am I going to be the first?
I don't know. Look, I know what Chris is saying. I must admit, I think there's only so many battles everyone can do, and your house is. So for me, I'm fighting it on a different level, which is the money never existed. But
and
Yeah, it never
both of
existed.
those are valid, aren't they?
They're both valid, but they will never let us win on the mortgages because it goes back to the Crown, and they can't let those floodgates come through, because if they just let one go through, it's over for them. They can't let the banks, they can't let the masses know that it's a massive fraud, so they're not going to even let one through. I just
Well, it
can't see how
depends.
that's going to, huh?
It depends, Marco. I've been reading today the statements made by the Attorney General, the new one. It's very interesting stuff, actually, on the rule of law. He gave the Tom Bingham lecture about 2 weeks ago. And in it, he's saying that we must, under all circumstances, uphold and enforce the rule of law. Now, I think if we go through his statements in that lecture and quote them to, in this case, to the people there, showing that we are desperately trying to uphold and enforce the rule of law in order to stop mass murder and genocide, I think that'll have quite a powerful effect. So we've got to try some of these things. And I think it may be worthwhile going through the Attorney General. Again, I'm happy to have a chat with you about this. But we've got to find a way of opening up their minds to the fact that everything that's going on in relation to the financing of the disgraceful operations in Gaza and the Ukraine and the Yemen and so on is a criminal offense for which individuals can be prosecuted.
Okay, so going after the man, basically.
Yep.
I think we can't go after the corporation. We have to go after the men. The men and
Correct.
women, the men and women.
That's the benefit of what we're doing, is we're focusing on the criminal law and not the civil law.
Okay. And one last thing, I keep getting bills from HMRC, but I'm ignoring them now.
Well done.
You shouldn't ignore, Marco. You
Well,
shouldn't.
Hugh, I get one letter, and then 2 days later I get another one. Then I get another one 2 days later, and it doesn't give me enough time to respond to the first one. So, and they're all the same. It's just the interest that has gone up. I do respond to the ones I
Yeah.
get after, if it's say VAT, I respond
Yeah.
with the trust and everything. But
Yeah.
then I get 2 days later, I get the same one for VAT. Am I supposed to respond to that one again, or?
Oh no, I do sort of collect a few, okay, and then do a batch letter that says I
Okay.
acknowledge receipt of your letters dated bam, 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 bam.
Okay. Okay.
And
I was responding to every letter, so
yeah, yeah,
it was just putting a lot of work for me.
yeah.
So that's a good idea. So you wait till you've got a few, and then you
A
respond
few,
to all
yes,
of them,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
send them a trust. You send
yeah.
them the trust and all of that.
Or a
They're not
reminder of
answering
it.
my questions.
No,
You could send them 10 years of replies in advance. It would take a while to work out what's going to happen.
I've got used to getting these brown envelopes. Most people would panic. I just look at them and put them in.
Well done, Marco. You are to
what-
be congratulated.
yeah. So really what it boils down to, Marco, is that so far you haven't received anything from HMRC telling you that they're taking you to court.
Nope, nothing.
Have they stopped threatening enforcement agents?
Yeah. Since we gave them that letter, remember that letter you helped me with?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they backed off.
Yeah, they know that they can't do anything without a court order. And to get a court order, all this has got to come out in front of judges.
Yeah, they backed off. Yeah, thank you for helping me with that. Yeah, they have backed off, and but they keep sending the letters. I did get a phone call, but I was working from Barclays, and my receptionist said, "Oh, it's Barclays. It's something to do with HMRC." But I didn't respond to the phone call, and I didn't bother ringing them back. I always make sure that I take in the money out of the bank, because I know
Yes.
HMRC can access it, can't they?
Yes, and you're putting it away safely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got records of everything. You can show any judge what you're up to, that you're being honorable.
Yeah.
That you know you're obeying,
not spending it,
not spending it. Yeah. And so that everybody knows, we've got a point to prove here. Okay, and they're not dealing with it. They're just not dealing with it. The only people who are dealing with it, because they've got access to corrupt courts, that's the magistrates' courts, that's the council tax.
But that's a fake court, isn't it?
It's a court of administration, which is unlawful.
A bank.
Yeah.
It's a bank. It's not a court with a jury, trial by jury.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not any of these things, but it is part of the system. And the moment you start saying to them that, you're just a bank, they dismiss you. The only way that you can enter into a conversation with them about this, the fact that they are a court of administration, is if you are in front of the magistrates and you ask them and the legal advisor, is this a court of administration? Okay. And then they have to reply. And then they will invariably reply, no, this is a court of common law. Upon which then you say, then in that case, I can use all law to defend myself here. And then they say to you, no, we are here to deal with the Local Government Finance Act. And so then at that point you say, so we are in a court of administration. And then you get them to again state that you are in a court of common law. And you can go around that one a few times, okay? But then that's the point at which you should then just abandon and just say, well, actually, I have paid, and you present them with your deed. Okay.
Do you think I should show them where the money's been paid into?
No. That is just helping them too much.
No, I don't want to help them.
No,
I don't want to help them.
Go away.
Yeah, go away.
But whilst you are giving them your deed, okay, you say to them, this is really, really very dangerous for you, because if you issue the liability order against me, you will become criminals.
Are you talking about council tax now, though, right?
I'm talking about the council tax. You see, we are okay on income tax, capital gains tax, inheritance tax, all of those taxes that are dealt with directly by HMRC. At the moment, we are all safe from it. Okay. Yeah. But when it comes to the council tax, and anybody doing the council tax challenge, then we are at the mercy of the magistrates.
I haven't heard anything from council. Nothing.
Haven't you?
They went away. They appeared. The bailiffs appeared to my door.
Yeah.
I gave them 4 notices, and the bailiffs appeared, and they tried to take my car, but they couldn't find my name because my car is in a trust, so he couldn't find my name anywhere. And then I just asked him to leave 3 times, and then I invoiced the company for £6,000.
Have they paid it?
No, but they haven't bothered me. This was in March.
Also, Marco, in terms of your HMRC stuff and sorry, your pension, because it's criminal what they're doing, you know, there is masses of evidence now, isn't there, against the government.
Yeah.
So almost it's like getting the information out to people so they understand what it is they're doing by just following orders, you know, that there are, you know, the 800-page ICJP court case. And the one from Australia, there's loads. You just cut and paste and put all that in and say, this is where the money's going. You know, you've got responsibility.
Okay. Have you got
I'll send you that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, if you send me that, I'll send them a letter. I'll send them a notice.
Yeah, because there's a lot that you know, because a lot of people are decent, and then they read it and they realize what's going on and the stuff. Gaza,
but they're so dumbed down, though, aren't they?
You never know who your CEO is.
You never know who you plant that seed, huh?
Exactly, it's worth a bash before you go after him. Okay, right. Crypto Rich has got his hand up. You can come back, Marco, later if you've got something else. Crypto Rich.
Yeah, just 2 things. So one is I would say to Marco, try the affidavit approach with HMRC, which is a sworn statement of fact. And, you know, Susie will send you a copy of the affidavit template that I used, and then we'll do that. And then the other thing is with regards to the bailiffs, I think you need to send the bailiffs round to the bailiffs to get them to pay on your £6,000 invoice.
I'm finding this very difficult to hear, Rich.
I'm so sorry.
Is your microphone muffled?
Oh, it is muffled. Sorry about that. Is this better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. So, Marco, I would try the affidavit, and Susie will send you the template, and then you can just adapt that for yourself, because I'm hoping that will put a stop to it. Okay. I haven't received a response to them from my notice of default, because that they haven't responded to the affidavit means that it stands as fact, and it's a further protection should they ever decide to take me to court.
Okay.
Because they'll lose. There's silence by acquiescence, because they haven't responded. And I know this from my work as a social worker when I deal with child protection cases. If a parent doesn't respond to a specific point that I've made with regards to child abuse, then they're accepting that the court accepts that as fact.
Okay.
And did you get it notarized, by the way? Sorry, Crypto.
No, I used a solicitor.
Okay, cool.
I just used a solicitor, and that was fine. There's a solicitor where I live. They just charge £10.
Okay,
right.
But you said you were saying something else as well about.
The other thing. This was a little joke about the bailiffs. You should send the bailiffs a demand letter and threaten them with bailiffs for not paying your £6,000 invoice.
Oh, a demand letter. Okay, demand letter. And I'll threaten them. Yeah.
You could even turn up at their house or whatever. Perhaps do an affidavit. You turned up. I warned you. I've sent you an invoice. You didn't object. Silence by acquiescence. Now pay up, and then take it to the small claims court. I don't know what the limit is.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. And then I'm just sending you a private message so you can email me and come on my channel. I did record a video with Skyman, which went up live on my channel yesterday. If people want to watch that, because I met him through this group, and if anybody else wants to come up and share their journey, this is really to inspire and empower people, other people. They see this and they think, okay, Marco's doing this. Well, I can do that if Marco can do this.
Anyone can do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm just dealing with personal stuff, and sorry for being muffled, and you're not going to see my handsome features this time.
Okay, not to worry.
Thank you.
Right. Simon.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I want to get a bit of feedback. I put 2 deeds of trust in so far, one for council tax, and that's the good news story. It was back in April, and I haven't heard a peep from them since. Nothing, just radio silence. So I presume that's good news. The other one was with the DVLA. Now that's been a bit more sticky, and perhaps I can get some advice here. I'll just give a rundown, a basic timeline, what's happened. On the 29th of July, the DVLA sent me a demand for £104 for the year's tax, what have you. And I sent them back the deed of trust as outlined in the probity.co. And on the 12th of August, then, 4 days later, I receive a letter from the DVLA basically just saying the usual threats. So, you know, if you don't pay, you're going to be in trouble, you're going to impound your car, blah, blah, blah. And on the 18th of August, then, the next week, I sent them an opportunity to cure, basically, which I went through all the points that, you know, that they had to deal with the deed of trust as laid out. On the 27th of August, then, I got the DVLA came by and put a sticker on my windshield on the car saying this is, you know, this is a bad person who's not paying his tax, whatever. And I went out when he was sticking it on. I said, look, this is in dispute, so, you know, it's a bit silly, whatever. I took it off. No big deal. Then on the 12th of September, I got a letter back from the DVLA, supposedly in response to the opportunity to cure. And with regards to the issues I raised, it basically, and I will quote what they wrote, I will not engage in any discussion on the matter, period. And then they went back to threats and all the things, bad things that could happen to me if I didn't pay up. And then on the 7th of October, I got another letter from the DVLA basically suggesting that I pay them a £70 fine plus the outstanding balance to avoid court action, which I didn't respond to because I was quite happy to go to court.
Yeah.
And on the 16th of October, they snuck in and clamped my car. So I couldn't move. So my car is stuck outside my house with a clamp on it. I have since sent them a number of letters, basically outlining their lack of response to my conditional offer. And the last one I sent was just the other day. They received it by now, and basically I sent them a legal notice. And among other things, I said that damages will accrue to a rate of £500 per day for every day the vehicle remains clamped or impounded. And if you're an enforcement agent or contractor acting on behalf of the DVLA, it is strongly advised that you consult legal counsel and refrain from further actions on this vehicle until the matter is resolved. So I do have the tools and the equipment just to grind the clamp off. But I've refrained from that now because I think that might get me actually on the wrong side of things, and perhaps I'm in a stronger position of just keeping it immobilized for now and possibly taking out an injunction against the DVLA. But I wonder if any responses on my predicaments and where I should go from that. I mean,
just say 2 things.
Yes.
Yeah, don't angle grind it. You're right, because that's a criminal action. But you can take it off by lowering the tire, taking the air out of the tire.
Yeah.
And then you can take the clamp off, and then you just pump your tire up again. And if it's a modern one, there's stuff online. I've done it. And if it's a modern one, there's a little, somebody else will know better here, but there's a way you can just unscrew some tiny little bit with these modern ones. If it's a dodgy clamp firm, was it police clamp?
No, it was a DVLA agent from the DVLA, and a DVLA van came by.
Just have a look online. There's loads of ways to take them off, but we used to do that when years ago, we had catering companies. We used to just lower the tires, take the clamp off, and turn them into, candelabras. But we never damaged them because obviously then it was a criminal thing. But anyone else? Sorry, Chris.
No, it's fine.
I was just going to reiterate what I was saying earlier. This is a civil matter, not criminal. But it does develop into criminal, as I said earlier. If you remove the clamp, then the enforcers, because they think they've taken possession of your vehicle, if you start using it on the road, in the case of my friend, Jacobs reported it as stolen. And when she was out shopping, the police descended on it and seized it, took it away. So you have to be a bit careful. I mean, that's Jacobs. I don't know what. I don't know whether the word was spread to other enforcers. But my story with DVLA very quickly is the beginning of last year. They caught me on a number plate recognition camera in the city centre somewhere early last year. I didn't know anything about it until the end of November, when I got a letter from the court bailiffs, actually bailiffs, saying that I owed £1,100, but with no indication of what it was for. So I contacted the court and they said, well, it's DVLA and it's car tax. And I said, well, why wasn't I sent notice of a hearing? So they had a look at the records and they said, well, there was a hearing at the beginning of November, but we seem to have sent the paperwork to a different address. So the letters from the bailiff arrived correctly, but not the notice of that. But they said, don't worry, you can apply for another hearing. So I applied for another hearing. But at the same time, I issued DVLA with the deed of trust for the £1,100 that they had been awarded. We had a meeting, we had a hearing in front of 2 magistrates, and I thought it was the hearing, and it turned out to be 2 magistrates deciding whether I could have a hearing. They decided that I could because the paperwork had gone to the wrong address. And then while we were waiting for that hearing, DVLA got in touch with me and said, well, what about paying half the amount? Well, I refused to do that because I wanted to go to court. And so in March, we had another hearing, and I took along some friends at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We were standing in the waiting area, and I got this feeling that they weren't turning up. The legal advisor came out of the court and it said, it doesn't look as though DVL are turning up. Do you mind if I go and have a word with the magistrates and suggest to them that they dismiss the case? I said, yes, please.
Wow.
So we went into the court, and bearing in mind this is in Derby, the first thing the magistrates had to look at was a letter from DVLA who wanted to transfer the case to Redditch. Not only that, but they wanted it the following week on the Tuesday, for which I had no notice. But the magistrates looked at that letter and decided that they were going to dismiss that because of the previous hearing, Derby Court magistrates had decided I could have a hearing, and they were going to go along with that and have the hearing. And so the next thing they had to decide was what were they going to do with me? Well, the legal advisor said to the magistrates, well, as DVLA have not turned up, I suggest you dismiss the case. And I'm standing there with a big grin on my face, and the poor old magistrates didn't really know what to do with me because obviously I was going to get away with it. And so they dismissed the case. And that was it, really. But all circumstances are different. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen with you or anybody else, but that's what happened with me. And I'd like to think it was a deed of trust that I sent to them, agreeing to pay the £1,100 which they'd been awarded at the first hearing, possibly persuaded them not to turn up.
Oh, brilliant. Well done. That's good. Okay, Leslie, brilliant. Because I think Leslie's going to comment on what everybody's just been saying. Leslie.
God, are you a mind reader?
Yes.
Scary. Good evening, everybody. It's the first time I've been into this Zoom meeting. So, yeah, I'm going to comment on that. Not that I'm an expert on anything. It's just a little bit of information that I have been digging about. And, of course, I'm coming at this from, you know, accepting that I'm so unaware of things from the get-go, and I've discovered various things. So on the car side of life, we understand about registering our cars means that we're giving it away, same as the birth and certificate of the babies, and same as land registry with houses. I accept that. So just as a matter of interest for myself, when I realised that obviously there's the freedoms and rights to travel and roam the land, and that ultimately as a living soul, that's what I am entitled to, literally by, my being in this beautiful body and all the rest of that good stuff. So I thought, well, okay, looking at the aspect of how they try to tie me up with the car side, as best I understand it, and I will stand to be corrected, the terms vehicle, transport, traffic, and all that good stuff categorizes me, incorrectly legally, but categorizes me as if I'm a commercial vehicle. So every time I go and get in my four-wheel conveyance or whatever it is, I am, there's some kind of commercial engagement. So I'm either transporting goods or services, or I'm trafficking people or whatever. That's how they get around it. So if there's a possibility that I'm a commercial, transactionalist while I'm using it, that's why they try to put liens against the fictional entity that is on the DVLA database. So as a matter of interest, I was coming up to being having to renew my next premium for one of my car insurances. And before I decided to pay for this, it's an old car, so it's on classic car insurance. And I asked the lady on the phone just a quick question before I part with monies. As best I understand it, I'm free to travel. And I think there's a bit of a confusion as to, I think I might be wrongly categorized. So I explained the stuff that I'd been learning about, and she didn't know much about it, but she went off to chat to her higher ups, came back on the phone and said, oh yeah, well, I've learned something new here, Leslie. Apparently, yes, they know about this. So this was Lancaster Insurance, who were, insuring the Volvo. To which I then said, okay, brilliant, great. So I now know it's not fantasy, it's fact. Can you ask them, can you tell me what impact would that have on my premium? If I want to recategorize myself and insure myself as a free traveler. And I know this sounds daft, but obviously I'm playing dumb on occasions, because I think sometimes we have to, and almost be that sort of idiot, because that's what we've been treated as. She didn't know what the impact would be, but she said, I'll get in touch with the underwriters and see. I'll have to get back to you. So she rang me back and said, good news. Everything that you've been talking about is absolutely spot on. So if you are free to travel and all the rest of it, yes, you are not legally obliged for car insurance under the legalese framework and road tax and all the MOT stuff. So it's like, oh, happy days. We have a result. She said, bad news is they've told me that they don't insure private travelers. Okay, that's not a problem, says I. Do they happen to know who would? Oh, well, she said, well, she says they won't tell me. She says, apparently there are very few that will insure private travelers, but, So following that conversation, I had a conversation with the DVLA people, very angry lady, who seemed, she must have been under stress. But anyway, after establishing, I've only run for a conversation, love, not an argument. I just want to establish, I think I'm wrongly categorized. So I'm in the process of putting a letter together to go to the Keepers Register team, or the Keepers team, to basically, put my hand up and say, I'm ever so sorry, but I think since 1988, you've wrongly categorized me. So can I be correctly categorized? And would you like your registration plates back, or do you need your V5 document back? So that's going to be my approach to this, because clearly we have that right to be free of those liens, unless you're a commercial vehicle, which is why I put my question in the box earlier. So I hope that's helpful, but that's my contribution.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think like Chris says, it's, all these people are doing this all over the place, but really we need to be going at them with a case for all these things. Okay, are there any more questions? Any more for any more?
Well, I know there was one from Tracy Mearns.
Oh, Tracy, are you there? Have you gone, Tracy?
No, I'm here.
Oh, hiya, hiya. How you doing?
Hi. In my jammies. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
It was just a question actually about, so you came up to Edinburgh obviously and done that wonderful talk for us. And so I've had quite a few people asking questions when they're sending their deed off. Are they needing to write a covering letter with it or not? Is it just the deed they're sending?
It's very sensible to send a covering letter. We've had quite a few up on the website. The latest one is really a response letter after they have engaged with you and told you that none of it applies. I think we need to make sure perhaps Susie can identify initial letters that go out with the declaration of deed.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, and obviously make them as least like a template as you can.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Brilliant.
Okay. 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 And we're going for the CEO, obviously, of each company. I mean, I've done this e-letter process 2 years ago. I've not paid council tax for 2 years, so 2.5 years. But I'm just going to hit them with this deed as well. Just to be honest, I've not really had much. Not really had much hassle. I used to work for the council, so I'm not employed with them anymore, which has been really good. But
Good.
Yeah, okay. I mean, Chris is coming back in November, but to see us, which is wonderful. But yeah, it was just a few questions prior to him coming up, so I shall have another
I'm
look.
looking forward to that, Tracy. I will try to emphasize the importance of, if we want independence for Scotland,
Yeah.
one of the best ways is to withhold all the taxes from Scotland that go to the revenue and customs at Whitehall.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's important because the Scottish government needs to know that everything they're doing by sending money to the British government is supportive of war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and terrorism.
Yeah. Yeah.
And therefore, they must stop withholding it. I think that would be a very quick way to achieve independence, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting on the fence with that. I don't tend to go down the political route, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, if we get independence, I mean, yeah, it's not my monkey. I don't really care one way or the other, to be honest. But I don't. It just doesn't faze me at all. As long as I'm independent and I'm doing my thing, that's all I'm really concerned about. So. Yeah, we've got a few independent candidates anyway that are running. They're trying to get a seat actually at Holyrood as an independent.
Okay, well, I think the important thing from my point of view is that we need to take back our sovereignty. We must ensure that we take the decisions about how lives are
I agree.
Going, rather than allowing any government anywhere to do it.
Yeah, correct.
And constantly paying them to do it. And that's why we've got to stop it.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. 100%.
All right, we've got three more questions. Thanks very much,
Tracy. Thank you.
Okay, Marianne. Hello.
Hi. I won't be so rude and stay dark. I'll jump in. Okay, I jumped on a few.
Marianne, you might have to do it without a picture.
Just to say, you could. Yes.
Sorry, you're not coming across very well, Marianne. So
okay.
If you turn the picture off.
1 minute. Does that help?
Turn the picture. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that'll be better. Go on.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. Has that helped any?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, jumped on a few Zoom ago and asked me, as a nation, we need a sovereign food system, which we don't have. That's going to start with the farmers and re-empowering them. Now, I've been looking at the problem for 25 years, been playing with, shall we say, in the private food co-ops the last 2 years But I realised I'm going to have to set something up that I've finished the draft of the Articles of Association for a company limited by guarantee to cooperative rules, which I've sent to a couple of people. I haven't had feedback yet. But what I would really like is I don't get out there very much, and it's a case of I'd really like just a few minds to meld with to see if I'm sort of thinking in the right way and plan. And the other thing is, if I want to be doing it right with things like tax from a staff perspective, and I just feel when you've got something new, it would be great to put the infrastructure in from the get-go. And it's a whole conversation that I don't know where to start to have. That's the bottom line.
Marianne, we can arrange a meeting with you or a chat between us. Would you say that?
What's the thinking?
Chris, do you want to do a separate chat sometime? It's quite big.
Yes, I'm very happy to do that. I think, Marianne, it's you're quite right. It is important to have the right structure. And I think the structures that I'm particularly keen on are the multi-stakeholder, limited liability, community, platform, co-ops. They are the law changed in 2014, and we now have the possibility of setting up cooperatives with the same legal framework as large international holding companies. And we become a holding cooperative. And so you can get all your farmers as separate businesses joining a co-op. You can get supplier companies and others joining the co-op as corporations or businesses, but they only have one vote in the co-op, even however big they are, providing you do it as a limited liability by guarantee and not by shares. So yes, let's have a separate discussion about it. I'm happy to do that, set it up, and we can focus on these co-ops and how we can apply them in farmers, for local councils, for all sorts of local activities where we start to take charge of our own affairs.
Yeah,
agreed.
I'll set that up, Marianne, because you're local to me, I think, and we know similar farmers.
Oh, good.
So I'll get in touch with you and arrange that.
Okay,
Brilliant.
thank you, Susie.
You're welcome. All right, see you soon. David. David?
I'm just unmuting. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just a brief question. I can't remember who the chap was. I don't know if it was Marco, but somebody said they put their car in trust. And I'm expecting that my challenge with the council is going to be handed over to enforcement agents any day now. So I'd be interested in knowing what process he used.
Marco, can you respond to that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I sent them 3. Have you done the 3 notice thing?
What, with the council?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been rebutting all their claims with letters.
Letters or notices?
Well, I've been sending them notices, and they've been ignoring them. But I've been using, just been exposing the fact that the liability order. There's no record in the court of any hearing or any liability order. So that's what I've been challenging.
Have they sent you a summons?
Oh yeah, I've had the summons. I've had the court hearing. Yeah.
Did you go to the court hearing?
No.
Okay. So now is the debt passed on to the enforcement agents?
No, I think that it's a point where they're going to be passing it on probably any day now.
So just give them notice when you get the demand. this is what I did. I gave them 3 notices.
To
And
the agents?
Yeah, to the enforcement agents. Yeah, you give them notice, 3 notices, and every letter that I got, I just sent it back to them. And then when they turned up, they gave another letter to my daughter, who thought it was somebody else, but by mistake she took it. I didn't even open the letter that they gave us. I sent that back with an invoice, and I haven't heard anything.
Okay, but you said you'd put your car in trust, is that right?
Yeah. So what you do is you change the name. You can just make up a name. Just make up a name. Call it Social Flaming Limited or Social Flaming Trust, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
You call it Keir Starmer's bottle.
And you just do that on the government.
Yeah, on as if you're selling the car. I did it when I bought the car. I told the owner, "Can you just transfer it to this name?" And I gave him a name, and I just put trust at the end.
All right.
And then you just go online and you get insurance, and you insure yourself and whoever you want to drive. And that's it. So that your name is not there. So you're still able to operate the car, but the car is not in your name. You're not the registered keeper anymore.
Right.
The trust is.
All right, that's great. Thank you, Marco.
No worries.
Thank you.
Can I interrupt and also say, David, when you send your 3 notices to the enforcement agents, you need to point out to them that you are aware of the Leighton v. Bristow and Souter case, and that therefore, if they do turn up to your premises, that will be it will be trespass, and it will also be harassment.
Yeah.
Okay. Just make sure you mention Leighton v. Bristow and Souter.
Yeah.
Okay, because then you will be able to have recourse later on when they take things further, and you'll be able to lodge a claim online for damages.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
I can also say there's a standard trust thing, isn't there, as well for cars? Okay, Alyssa?
Hello. Yes. Thank you. So my name is Elisa Keane, and I live in Northern Ireland. And I was speaking to Chris a couple of months ago because we used we were using the trust, and in Northern Ireland, in terms of council tax, there's a group of us who are getting together to do this, but it's not called council tax here, it's called rates.
Right.
So, and what we've discovered is it's not the councils, it goes through Land and Property Service, which is actually a trust that's set up by the Department of Finance of Northern Ireland. So we've found their trust documents, and the trust documents state that they raise 1.6 billion in rates every year, and that goes directly into the consolidated fund. So what we're at just the beginning stages, where there's a whole group of us who are now going to submit the rates trust, and we've as one, and then we've been dealing and just researching on how they handle it in the magistrate's court, which is similar, but the names are different. So in England, I believe it's a liability order. In Northern Ireland, they call it a decree, and it's set up as a private hearing. They rent out a room within the courthouse, and people have already done checks, and they're not part of the ICOS system. So it's just to let you know that we're here, and we're starting. I think November is the mid-November is the first that we're sending in all our trustees and that. So we have done one separately. This was it was a fraudulent fine within a magistrate's for Dr. Ann McCluskey, and it was for speaking out in COVID, and we have submitted a trust like that. Chris and I spoke this summer, and there's only been one reply that wasn't from any of the respondents that it was sent to. But the one thing they did is they will not call it a trust deed. So they want to try to avoid that, but they haven't moved at all on any other thing. So thanks for having me tonight. And I just want
well done. Great, that's great. Do you want to say something, Chris? Did you meet before? He's gone. Okay, Jennifer. Jennifer.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hi. So I don't really. The biggest thing sort of that's happening in our area just now is the fact that they're going away to make a huge area, nearly the whole of Dumfries and Galloway, into a national park. They're saying that somebody voted for it. I certainly didn't vote for it. But they say it was voted on, and it was decided to make most of Dumfries and Galloway, so all the villages, all the towns, big towns, Stranraer, all the farmland. So I really just wondered if it might be the motivation for people to stop paying the government money. So that's a good thing, and I'll take advantage of anybody that wants to go along that way by telling them about what we're doing here. None of the farmers want it, so there's a concern about that. That's really the main concern for me, but I think maybe that's because I don't really know all that much about it. So if there's somebody that you could recommend where I could find out more about it, not just the mainstream view. And I was just wondering if that co-op thing would be a kind of an alternative thing to set up, but I really don't see how. I mean, I know what I feel like about the legal system and the straw man and all that kind of thing, but that's maybe taking it a bit extreme for people that are just starting off. So I don't really know how to progress with this from where the farmers are and where most people are to get to the point where they're saying we're just not going to accept it. And we don't have to accept it because it's legal fiction. I don't see any way to deal with it apart from in that sort of really going as far as that, you know.
Jennifer, yes. I'm happy to advise on that. I've had quite a bit of experience now with these multi-stakeholder limited liability community platform co-ops in getting the articles of association set up. We haven't managed yet to have them successfully operating because it is quite a complex process to get lots of different people with different understandings on board with the same activity. But that's why we need a separate conversation with this. And Susie was talking about the potential of having a separate session. So I think it'd be a good idea to build you into that if we can, Jennifer. And I'm happy to try to progress this and do as much as I can to help, because we've got to have the legal structures which make it possible for us to take our own decisions in our own way in our local areas, regardless of what the government and the big corporations are trying to do. And this is one legal way of doing that. So we can, again, gain control of our own affairs, particularly of the food, the production and distribution side of it.
Yeah.
I'll get in touch with you, Jennifer, when we're setting something up with Marianne, because obviously all of those things are really important. So I'll do that.
Great. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Debbie, last one.
Yeah, it was just a response to, was it David, after his 3 notices?
Yeah.
That he might find that letter to the tax collectors that you've loaded up last week quite useful to send as well.
Yes.
Including the Leighton versus Suter. It might just be an extra thing to add on top of the notices.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's worth, isn't
Thank
it,
you.
reading the whole of Leighton versus Suter, Leighton versus Bristow and Suter. I mean, it's quite fascinating.
It is, and you must read right down to the bottom, because it is at the bottom that you get the actual meat of what happened. It's very important.
It's almost like just a cut and paste in itself, isn't it? For
Yeah, it's that case is so important.
Yeah, no, it just goes to show it can be done.
Yeah.
Not all courts are bent. Okay, any last questions, or anybody want to say anything else? No? Good. Okay, brilliant. Well, listen, thanks ever so much, everyone. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks very much, folks.
Thanks, Chris.